Today on Pro Church Daily, we're talking about 9 drone video tips from the experts.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Daily, the show where in 10 minutes or less you'll get your daily dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we try and navigate the biggest communication shift we've seen in, you guessed it, the last 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, it's Brady Shearer, and today we're talking about 9 drone video tips from the experts.
I've now flown the drone at least 5 times.
You're an expert.
I'm an expert. Alex and I went on a recent trip to southern Utah, road tripped throughout the southern part of the state and brought our drone with us, the DJI Inspire 2, and we filmed a bunch of, I think, spectacular footage.
Yeah.
Thanks almost entirely to the spectacular landscape.
Yes.
And you're seeing, if you're watching on YouTube, watching the video, some of those clips now. And we wanted to talk about 9 tips that we've learned from flying the drone, not just from this trip to Utah, but for Storytape.com, we've flown to Iceland, Ireland, Switzerland, Hawaii,
California,
other places in the States. We're headed to Oregon next month.
Yeah.
And this is something that we do. We fly aerially. We take our aerial footage. So let's talk about 9 things that we've learned to hopefully help you fly better, fly safer, fly smarter. Number 1, the first thing, get legal.
You can't, I know this is yours, you want to talk about it. But
just go.
You can't move past this one. If you're flying in the States, wherever you're flying, if you're not doing it legally, you don't deserve the next 8 bonus tips.
You're not getting them.
You have to operate these unmanned aircraft legally. I'll step off my soapbox. You can continue.
There may have been a person or two that we encountered, an elderly gentleman or two in Utah that flew their drone, their little DJI Mavic, a little bit less than legally.
Yeah.
And this is why drones have a bad rap.
Yes.
And the thing is, it's really easy to get certified within America. They've made it very easy. Just a written test.
Yeah.
You're 107. Get it. Be smart.
Yeah.
Tip number 2, shoot during magic hour. Thrills?
Yeah, look, twice a day, the good Lord himself
Thank you, Lord.
provides us with something really special, and it's a sunrise and a sunset. You can depend on it every day. And so if you've got good weather, this is the best time to shoot aerial footage for a couple reasons. One, that golden light it's the best light you're going to get to shoot from the sky. Sometimes when you're shooting at high noon, you're competing with shadows, and it can be possible. We've shot multiple scenes at high noon, and it can work. But ideally, magic hour is the best time to shoot. Now, that requires you getting up early and going to bed late sometimes, long days, long nights, but that's what it takes. And another great thing that I love about shooting at these times is because the sun is rising and setting, you obviously get that moment. You can shoot sunrise and sunset that very moment. You can get some very cool shots, but the light develops so much over that hour or two.
That's a good point.
That, one mountain or one canyon or one river that you're shooting it just transforms as the light changes. And so you can get so many different perspectives on one location as the light changes. And that's happening the best, the most beautiful, and the most dramatic at magic hour.
2 practical reasons why I also do this, especially morning magic hour. No one else is awake.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
You're not going to bother anyone, and you're also not going to attract a crowd, which is nice. And then number 2, shooting at high noon, biggest problem, drone shadow.
Yeah.
Sun's right above you. You get this amazing shot until you realize, oh, I thought that was a bird. No, that's my drone shadow. Tip number 3, alternatives to national parks. In America, in Canada, in almost every country we've checked, there's a blanket rule. You cannot shoot in national parks.
Right.
You might like the rule. You might not like it. That's the rule. There are a couple of ways to work around this. We were in southern Utah. Almost all the things that you think of in southern Utah are national parks.
Yeah.
Zion, Canyonlands, Arches.
Grand Canyon.
What we did is we will find a place, usually just outside of the national park, that is very comparable, because a lot of the times the boundary of the national park, we found this with Zion, just because the boundary ends here doesn't mean that the beauty of that national park ends there. Yeah. So right outside of Zion National Park is a place called Eagles Crag, and there was a trailhead there. We went at 5 a.m. No one was there, completely legal.
Yep.
We flew there, and then what we did was we put the 45 lens on, and then coincidentally, we were able to shoot and capture Zion.
Yeah, it looks like you're right inside the park.
It's that classic Mac OS desktop, and we were completely legal doing that.
Yeah.
So just because you can't shoot in a national park, find a place outside, beyond the boundaries. A lot of the times you can still capture great stuff there, and you can do it legally.
Nice.
Never fly near the Grand Canyon. Don't be stupid, people.
Tip number 4, we're talking about frame rates. I've got this question multiple times through DMs. One guy who was visiting our church who knew that I flew drones, he's like, hey, just got a Mavic. What frame rate do you shoot in? He just asked me like 2 weeks ago.
Thanks, Pastor.
And so depending on what kind of drone you have, what camera you have, you're going to have different capabilities as far as what frame rate you can actually shoot in. Our Inspire 2 has a whole variety of frame rates we can shoot in. And most people assume that people make 2 assumptions. One, well, you shoot in 24 frames per second to get the most cinematic look, or 2, you shoot in 60 frames per second to get the most frames in there so that, you know, that the image is as clear as possible. You can slow it down, speed it up, whatever. What we do is we shoot in 30 frames per second, and this is why. We shoot in 30p, and then we actually put it into a 24p timeline in Premiere. So I believe the phrase is interpolate the footage. And so when you put that 30 frame footage into the 24 frame timeline, you maintain that cinematic look. You squeeze a couple more frames in there, and you actually lengthen the clip by a couple seconds. And so that's what we're doing for our footage, and it's working really well for us.
The process of reinterpolation.
Yeah.
Seriously though, what it does is it also it helps with the stabilization too. Like if things are a little bit shaky, even just that 10-20% slowdown helps with that a ton.
Yep.
Tip number 5. When you're looking for places to shoot, I have found great success with lookouts and viewpoints on highways. So, for instance, one day we were in Hawaii, and we had a place that we planned to shoot, and it was rained out. And we were like, great, now what do we do? And I had a backup. I had this idea. There's this place on the highway not too far away, and the great thing about Hawaii is if it's raining in one spot, it's not 20 minutes down the road.
Right.
So we drove down there. It was this viewpoint right off the highway, beautiful panoramic view. And the great thing about a viewpoint is, one, it's usually incredibly beautiful, and it's easy to search online. So if you're going somewhere new, you can find it beforehand. Also, if there is someone that stops there, they only stop for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're gone. So you're not going to be really bothering anybody. And then 2, or 3, really accessible right off the highway.
Yeah, that's great. Drone tip number 6. Now, this one is a little bit unique, and it has to do with the limitations that you have to work within when you're flying unmanned aircraft, and specifically the battery life. And so for us, we fly the DJI Inspire 2. We get about, on average, 22 minutes per set of batteries, and we have 12 batteries, so 6 sets. We get about 6 22-minute flights. And for one location, that's a good amount of time.
It gives us all of magic out.
Yeah, so that's a lot of time in the air. But maybe you don't have that luxury. Maybe you don't have that amount of battery life, and so you can't really afford to get up in the air, look around through your camera, and then decide, oh, this is what I want to film. You've already spent 2, 3, 4 minutes of your battery life in the air trying to decide what to film. So drone tip number 6 is have a plan before you fly. And so when you choose your location on Google Maps, or even when you get there, and Brandon and I did this a lot in Iceland, Tristan and I did it a lot in Ireland, is when we got to a location, before we even put the drone in the air, we would kind of just spend some time looking around and seeing what the landscape has to offer, and actually coordinating some of our flight paths. And so Brandon and I would talk it out, and he would operate the aircraft, I would operate the camera, and I would say to Brandon, well, I really want to get this shot, so let's take off from here and immediately start flying this direction at this speed and this height, so we can maximize our time in the air and not waste any battery in the air. Plan your flight before you take off, and you'll get the best return on investment that you can.
Tip number 7, an app that I have found very helpful. It's called Airmap. We talked about not shooting in national parks. We talked about getting legal. There are still rules based on your regional rules, as well as where you are directly in relation to airports, helipads, and other things. Airmap will tell you, based on your coordinates or where you're planning on flying, exactly where you can or cannot fly. And there's this new thing called LAANC. It's an acronym, LAANC. It stands for Low Altitude Authorization and Notification Capability. Thank you. Whatever. It's this brand new thing that's actually really cool that America is rolling out. There are places where, let's say, you can't film because you're within the scope of an airport. Normally what you do is you have to call the airport and say, hey, I'm going to fly my drone this high at this time. They're like, okay, go for it. They're now rolling out automatic authorization. So there's a couple places that we're planning to go in Oregon that we can't shoot in, but using Airmap and this new LAANC, we can write in all of our details. My flight guy is named Tristan Persad, and he's flying here, and this is how high we're going to fly, and this is when we're going to go. And they will authorize you automatically through the app. No more calling the airport. Very cool.
I love this because this represents a step in the direction of more accessible drone laws. And this is a direct quote from the FAA website in reference to LAANC. It says, this directly supports unmanned aircraft systems integration into the airspace. So this is all about
smart, safe, but also not like crazy limited.
Exactly. So this is all about like, yes, we recognize everyone has a drone and you want to fly them. We want to figure out a way to integrate them into the airspace where there's commercial aircraft flying around in a safe and proper way. And this is a step in the direction of this is how we can do this. So I love this a lot. Drone tip number 8, we're getting to the end, is, and this one's helped me a lot, is to study aerial clips that you see in either feature films or TV shows. And so when I was learning how to fly the drone and especially operating the camera, kind of learning about what kind of shot should I be trying to achieve here. There's an element of, getting out and practicing on your own and seeing what you like and what looks good. But I like to learn from the success of other people. And so now when I'm watching television, whether it's, a movie or a TV show or even the new Apple TV screensaver,
of course.
It's like I'm paying attention to aerial shots and seeing, okay, at what speed are they flying when they are this distance from the ground? And, in Jurassic Park or in a show that I watch called Suits, which is actually filmed in Toronto, but the show is based in New York. So all of the aerial footage,
establishing shots.
Yeah, exactly, is not filmed by that show. It's filmed by somebody else. So what made the shot so good that Suits decided this is good enough for us to set the show in New York City? So I've just been paying more and more attention to shows and movies and other people's success on like a commercial level and saying what works and what are the tactics that they're using to create a great aerial shot. And then I've been incorporating that into my own flights.
Final tip as we close this episode of Pro Church Daily out, sun flares. This is a tip when it comes to framing and composition. Again, we're always shooting at magic hour, and I did this every single scene that we shot in Utah. We're trying to get as much diversity within our shots as possible, and I found that pointing your camera towards the sun and then keeping the sun in, let's say, the very corner of the frame. So you're not like putting it right in the center. You're putting it at the top, right, top, bottom, left, bottom, any one of the four corners, okay? And this will create a really cool look in the shot. And I'll show you some examples if you're watching on YouTube where there's a really nice sun flare, and that sun flare almost adds like this filter, this overlay on top of the entire frame. Very beautiful look, and it's tremendously versatile when it comes to how can we use this clip. And so just a fun framing composition tip that I found myself relying on while in Utah.
Love it.
And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Daily. We'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Pro Church Daily. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you never miss another video.
Hey, we liked making this video. Did you like watching it? Let us know. Give it a thumbs up.
Likety, likety, likety. See you next time.
Oh, man.
How dare you! Jonas is going to bring this new audition. Normalize. Computer starts smoking. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode of Pro Church Daily. Make sure that you like... What do I say?
Not that.
Not that!
Well, actually, you do say that. You say it
I
after
say-
I say it, yeah. I feel the need to repeat what I say.
Hey, thanks for watching today's episode of Pro Church Daily. We really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe, like, thumbs up, notification bell.